Hi, I'm Ray, and this is TinyTableGames. Welcome to the new episode. This time I'm going into Heroquest First Light, a game by Avalonhill that recently came out, which is just another expansion slash starting point in the Heroquest line that they've been doing for quite some time now. Heroquest came back out thanks to Kickstarter, basically, and all those people who used to play it then, people like me and some new people, were excited to see it come back. Now, I'm happy to report that Heroquest has all the weird quirks that it used to a certain extent. Some of the rules have been smoothed out from the old days, but a lot of the things that created the mystique around Heroquest then still exist now, including a lot of their first edition D&D references or nods to in how they name character classes. For example, in first edition D&D, being an elf or a dwarf was a class, much like fighter, magic user, or cleric. Heroquest is normally played much like D&D with up to 4 players, because you have 4 characters to start with, at least in the First Light box, and 1 person playing the DM. Unlike the old days, however, we now have technology, so I've downloaded the Hasbro app, the companion app, which acts as your dungeon master for you. Interesting, somewhat humorous, I think, aspects to it, and some of the introductions are a little weird, and you can tell they were written kind of half so that people will be into it and get the idea of the game, and half for people who like to role play but they didn't want to scare anybody off, which is how the tack they took back in the old days too. So it was nice to see the same kind of nonsensical half lore, not really lore, sort of rules explanation, sort of not. You'll see what I mean. I'll get to it in just a second. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into Heroquest First Light. So here we have the basic setup, the Dungeon Master screen over there, which is nice artwork, so I set it up at the other side of the table, even though the app will be taking control. We have the standardized map. It's two-sided. You don't necessarily use all these rooms. These are just the potential rooms, and then the game as you go will cover parts of it and put in doors and hallways and block other parts off, so it's not always the same, but at least it gives you a standardized template on which you know you'll be playing. Monster cards with movement, attack dice, defense dice, body points, and mind points. Pretty much the same for all of them, just differing based on what the fearsomeness of the monster. The player characters have their starting card and their character sheet. As it is a campaign, there's like 10 to 12 adventures in the basic First Light quest book. There's 4 areas of spells: fire, water, air, and earth. Sound familiar to anybody? And the elf gets first pick, then the wizard gets first pick, then the elf picks one, and then the wizard gets the rest. There's 3 spells per category, so the wizard gets 9 spells for the session, and the elf gets 3. There's no refreshing except at the end of the quest, which is the end of the adventure. Okay, when you're starting off in Heroquest, it comes with 2 books, the First Light Rulebook and the First Light Quest Book. This is only meant for the Dungeon Master, of course, which it pretty much tells you right off the bat, along with giving you the table of contents, miniatures included, furniture, tiles, etc., etc. The main book, First Light Rulebook, it is exactly what you'd expect. Introduction, what's in the box for players, and the description of how to be a character and what moves you can do and so on, which we'll get into as the game progresses. You basically don't need this if you're using the app, because it's almost all just the adventures, of which there are 10. And then at the end, they do the old school thing of, hey, here's a blank template, go make your own. And here's the icons, so you can scan them all in and, scan them all in and go drop your own maps and keep on playing your own adventures, which is pretty cool and was definitely an old school standard. The only way they could have made that any more nostalgic is if they'd done the blue and white mimeograph style coloring, which, for those of you who may wonder, 1 second. Here is one of my pride and joys, my old Dungeons & Dragons basic box set, complete with the original dice and the crayon that you used to have to color in so you could see what the numbers were. For the record, note, first printing, January 1981. In any case, my point here is, in addition to the various classes, such as they are, in the old book, having things like dwarves and elves, is that when you get to the adventures and the tables for wandering monsters and whatnot, the standard was, here's a rough template and go fill it in. That was their sample adventure in the book. And then they gave you a spoiler alert for those who haven't looked at this since 1981 or never finished it. They gave your Dungeon Master a chance to fill out an entire subterranean layer beneath the keep with all kinds of little stuff that you could throw in and all the different little map icons that you could throw in there. So very much kind of like what Heroquest has done. And the blue mimeograph part, because it came with a module, of course. All the modules were blue and white in how they were printed. And I won't show you any more of that just in case somebody hasn't actually played Dungeon Module B2 Keep on the Borderlands. And just because I'm showing it, because I like doing it. The other thing that's kind of funny, there we go, from back in the day is business reply mail. Back in the day, before the internet existed, kids, if you wanted to contact a company or do anything, they'd usually throw flyers in the boxes and you could fill out their little charts or information, etc., and mail it back to them. Look at that, it was fancy. No postage necessary if mailed in the United States. That was unusual at the time, even then. And you can be a winner by filling out that form. And also, even back then, was the early days of the RPGA, presented by TSR, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. So, for some of you, that'll mean nothing. For others of you like me, that fills you with nostalgia and joy. But anyway, that's just my point in showing how Heroquest, even the modern version, does a nice job of giving nods to the old school. So, how does this game get started? Well, they have lots of intro text and flavor text to get started, both in the player book and, believe it or not, in the quest book, which is where things get a little cheesy, but in a fun way. You always have to remember this is not meant to be taken incredibly seriously. It's meant to be a real light introductory board game situation. Excuse me. And the flavor text certainly highlights that. So the flavor text, for those of you interested, as though we were starting our own game, let me start with some of the flavor text that's in the front of the First Light rulebook. Heroquest is a fantasy adventure game that sends heroes to the corners of the world, from winding stone labyrinths to the lofty heights of elven kingdoms to the frigid reaches of the realm and beyond. The rooms and corridors of each environment are controlled by Zargon, the evil sorcerer's forces of dread. Okay. 4 valiant heroes have been summoned by Mentor, as in M-E-N-T-O-R, mentor, not even a hyphen, although I say it kind of like that because I read lots of Marvel in my day, so, you know, Stanley loved his hyphens. Mentor, the good and ancient sage, for the ultimate heroic challenge, descend into the treacherous world of the unknown and restore honor to the realm. Which is a very 80s shtick on how to save everybody. Just charge randomly into thing and be a murder hobo, basically. Destroy the forces of dread. Stepping cautiously, they journey deeper and deeper into a hidden world. Never mind the pronoun switch there or whatever, but still. And then there's the first-person account that the adventurers receive in a letter, which is much longer, so you may wish to just fast-forward through this. But for anybody who's actually interested, I'm going to read through this real quick. Lend me your ears, brave adventurers, for I am Mentor, guardian and lore master, and your faithful guide on the treacherous and rewarding path ahead. To understand the importance of the task at hand, you must first understand the history of the realm, a past filled with darkness and hope in equal measures. There was once an age where hope was in short supply, and darkness reigned supreme. The forces of the evil sorcerer Zargon blighted the world with dread magic, withering all land and life within their grasp. Even the bravest warriors turned tail and fled at the sight of the dread banner, leaving common folk defenseless and without a prayer. But just when it seemed that all was lost, a ray of hope peeked through the darkness. Rogar the Barbarian, a mighty warrior prince from the Borderlands. Tales of his valor spread across the realm like wildfire. His picture of strength and bravery could be identified by the Star of the West, a glittering diamond he bore on his brow. An unmistakable emblem of hope, the star served as a sign that one's homestead may stand to see the light of another day. 3 formidable heroes joined Rogar's efforts. Durgan, a fearless dwarven warrior from the World's End Mountains. Ladril, an elven fighter mage from the distant Elthorn, and Taylor, a wizard whose fast-thinking and incomparable power delivered the heroes from even the most precarious of situations. For years, Rogar and his allies trained their army, carefully avoiding open battle with Zargon's feared generals until the time was right. During their preparations, they managed to distress the evil sorcerer supply lines and take down countless orc and goblin forces who attacked innocents at his behest. When the day finally came, Rogar's army camped on the high passes, waiting for Liadril's signal. The elf perched still as death on the peaks until the dread hosts appeared, then sent word to Turgan to blow his mighty horn, an unmistakable call to arms. Rogar's forces poured into the battlefield, flanking the enemy on both sides, which is quite a trick, by the way, if you think about it, but regardless. Spurring a skirmish that lasted until the light of the following day. Overwhelmed, the dread forces fled, and those good warriors who remained bellowed a victory cry that was heard far and wide. But that wasn't the end of Zargon. He and his general managed to escape beyond the Sea of Talons to plot their resurgence. I fear that the time of his rebirth is upon us, and that the realm will need the realm will need the right heroes to take up arms and defend it once again. Might you be those heroes? If you are to become as unassailable as Rogar and his companions, I will warn you that you have much to learn. I will do what I can to aid you with Lore Tome, a powerful artifact that holds knowledge from the beginning to the end of time. But guide you as I may, I cannot intervene. Although you'd think this would be intervening. Go forth and secure the fate of the realm before the time of hopelessness can return and the evil forces of Zargon triumph forever. So that's about as cheesy as it gets. But like I said, it's cheesy in the 80s. Hawk the Slayer, Conan the Barbarian. Who was that other one? There was another guy who had those 2 weasels or whatever. He was running around with Beastmaster. There we go. Poto and Kodo. So that's all you're given in the First Light rulebook. In the First Light quest book, however, there's a few more messages that the Overlord or Dungeon Master is supposed to read. So, a message from Mentor. Hello, my friends. I believe your training is complete. You are not yet true heroes, untested by battle as you are, but I sense in you great potential. Let me tell you of the foe you face, Zargon. Many centuries ago, Zargon was my apprentice. Man, it's setting up to be a kung fu movie, I suppose. The young sorcerer worked hard and learned quickly, but impatience devoured him. He thirsted always for more power, more knowledge. I warned him of the dangers and urged patience. This coming from the guy who has a book that knows everything from the start of time to the end of it? Whatever. For I knew in time my apprentice would become a great sorcerer, but Zargon could not wait. He broke into my study each night to read the forbidden tomes and texts gathered there. Again, huh? And the secrets held within them were great indeed. Upon learning them, Zargon fled. I have less and less faith in Mentor, to be honest. When I caught up to him, I found him irrevocably changed. He had pledged himself to the malevolent powers of dread, the fool. He saw only fast, intoxicating power and thought nothing of the terrible price that must be paid for it. I tried to reason with him to no avail. For many days we battled, but Zargon had allies stronger even than I, which makes you wonder why they weren't in charge. But anyway, and I could not defeat them. As we both weakened, he fled and sought refuge in the northern dread wastes. I believe he remains there, licking his wounds, conjuring ancient powers with which to overthrow the realm. Cursing, always, me and the heroes that I send to stop his deluge of poison. That is who you are up against, heroes. Remember that, and keep well your caution. I come to you today, however, with news of the Witch King Cassandria. And here's the part where it's like, Heroquest First Light in particular. A lot of this stuff is Heroquest Classic Core Box, if you will. But this bit is the original story, if you will, for First Light, as I understand it. She has moved a number of her army into the plains of death from the ruins of Kalos. Lore Tome shows me that they search for someone, one of their own, who seems to have defected. This rogue operative possesses a terrible and ancient artifact, though I cannot glean more than that. Prince Magnus has ordered Sir Ragnar, leader of the Knights of the Realm, to scout the plains of death and determine the whereabouts of Cassandra's forces. Ragnar has valuable insight into the nature of our enemy. He was recently rescued from imprisonment by one of Cassandria's orc warlords, the reprehensible Ulag. Rescued from imprisonment by one of... Okay, I'm not sure why Ulag would have rescued the guy. That may be a typo in how they did it, but interesting. I guess Ulag's a turncoat? We need you, brave ones, to become the heroes of the realm. It is for this very purpose I have trained you, and I know that you are up to the task. Let us go to the war room so that I might introduce you to Sir Ragnar. So, like I said, cheesy 80s Mighty Morphin Power Rangers style exposition, but there you go. And now with that, let's get into episode 1 of Heroquest First Light.